Do you see your spinning as art, craft, or something in between? Explore where you think creativity lies in the process of making yarn. Welcome to episode 10 of the Woolen Spinning Vlogmas. If you are just checking out my videos and you're new here, you might want to watch episode 1 first, which is linked for you down below. I'll be releasing these videos every other day so that my production schedule isn't completely overwhelming, and I hope that you enjoy all of them. Today's prompt brought back some thoughts of a recent woolen spinning radio episode that Rebecca, Dion, and I recorded earlier this fall when Rebecca intentionally tried to sow dissent between us about the debate of craft versus art. The consensus by the end of a relatively hilarious episode, mostly because it was difficult to sow dissent between three people who get along really well, was that hand spinning exists on a spectrum between craft and art, which had me thinking about how the imaginative stages of making are where creativity most vividly lives. We see this all around us on podcasts, blogs, Instagram posts, and elsewhere. Many of us talk through our creative process in much detail because there is so much creativity in those places. What do we want to make? What materials will help us achieve that end result? Then comes the infinitely creative questions. How will we execute that? How will color and texture play a role? And on and on. Once again, today we will finish off with a notes from the spinner's bench, which might become a thing here at Woolen Spinning. I think I like the idea of summarizing the thoughts in these vlogs into concise pieces, helping us bridge the reflective with the practical. So let's get into it. When people ask whether spinning is craft or art, I sometimes wonder why we need to choose. The word craft suggests skill, structure, and repetition. Art implies expression and meaning. But to spin wool into yarn is to move through both at once, guided by technique, inspired by vision. The more I work with fiber, the less I see these categories as opposites. Craft is how I build the world I imagine. Art is why I imagine it in the first place. The tension between craft and art is a relatively modern invention. Before industrialization, almost everything handmade carried both creative and functional purposes. Weavers, spinners, potters, and blacksmiths made what their communities needed, yet beauty was inseparable from use. A well-made cloth or pot wasn't craft in contrast to art. It was a manifestation of skill and imagination within daily life. The Industrial Revolution fractured that unity. As production moved into factories, craft became associated with the domestic and the feminine, the practical and the repeatable, while art was elevated as rare, masculine, and visionary. That divide had more to do with social hierarchy than with creative capacity. But hand spinners today inherit both legacies, the utilitarian tradition of making and the artistic urge to create meaning. When we sit at the wheel, we participate in an unbroken lineage that once shaped the literal fabric of civilization. Yet now, freed from necessity, we spin by choice. That choice transforms the act into something inherently creative, not because it's novel, but because it's deliberate. Many of us choose this slow work intentionally. For me, creativity lives in the imagination part of the process, before the wheel even begins to turn. It begins when I picture the yarn I want to hold, its weight, color, sheen, and purpose. Do I want a lofty yarn that traps air or a dense, smooth thread for structure? Will this yarn become a shawl, a warp, or a story? That visioning stage is every bit as creative as sketching or composing. I'm not merely applying skill, I'm designing experience. I imagine how the fiber will behave, how twist will shape it, and what emotion it will carry in its finished form. Creativity here isn't about decoration, it's about intention. Then comes execution, the craft side, drafting, treadling, plying, measuring twists per inch, adjusting tension. These are technical decisions, and yet each one contains a creative response. The fiber resists and I respond. It drifts and I adjust. Creativity hides in those small negotiations between hand and material. It's improvisation within structure. And then finally, there's reflection. When I see the yarn completed and I recognize what it has become. Sometimes it matches what I envisioned, and sometimes it surprises me. That surprise is creative too. It teaches me something new about both the fiber and myself. It's easy to think of creativity as inspiration, as something spontaneous and unstructured, but in practice, creativity flourishes within boundaries. Craft gives us those boundaries, the physical and technical frameworks that shape imagination into form. Every spinner learns that creativity depends on structure. Fiber length limits how far it can be drafted. Twist determines strength. Ply direction determines balance. To break these rules meaningfully, you must first understand them deeply. Craft isn't the opposite of art, it's its architecture. When we learn a new spinning technique, say long draw or how to cable ply, we expand our creative vocabulary. Technique gives us options and imagination chooses among them. The line between craft and art isn't a wall, it's a conversation. We often reserve the word creative for painters, composers, designers, but creativity isn't a rare talent, it's a mode of being attentive. Every time we make something by hand, we are engaging in creative reasoning, noticing, adjusting, refining, and imagining outcomes. In fiber work, that creativity becomes tangible. A spinner must imagine not just what the yarn will look like, but how it will feel. We think about color and texture, but also tension, rhythm, and purpose. Even a routine spinning session involves countless small creative judgments. The mind and body work together to maintain flow. What psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi famously called the flow state. He is a Hungarian American psychologist. Within that flow, the distinction between art and craft dissolves entirely. There is only making, attention, and joy. Creativity then doesn't live in the finished object. It lives in the process. It's in the curiosity that asks, what if? The experimentation that follows and the satisfaction that comes from translating vision into form. You don't have to make art to live creatively. You only have to be awake to the possibilities within your materials. So when I sit down to spin, I sometimes think of imagination as the first twist in the fiber. It's the invisible twist that gives direction to everything that follows. Without imagination, spinning becomes rote. Without craft, imagination never holds. Each stage, imagining, preparing, spinning, finishing, is a different kind of dialogue between control and release. Creativity lives in that balance. Too much control and the yarn feels lifeless. Too much release and it falls apart. The spinner learns through repetition how to hold energy lightly, how to translate thought into texture. In that sense, creativity in spinning is both a mindset and a muscle. It's trained through practice, but animated by emotion. So is spinning craft or art? I think the answer is simpler than either. Spinning is creative practice, the act of giving form to imagination through touch and motion. Whether the result hangs in a gallery, warms a body, or rests quietly in a basket of skeins doesn't change its essence. Craft and art are only categories. Creativity is the current that runs through both. Every spinner who imagines something new, who chooses color, tension, or texture with intention, participates in that current. Our daily acts of making remind us that creativity isn't a performance, it's a way of paying attention, of transforming material into meaning. The wheel turns, the fiber twists, and the idea becomes tangible. That is creation in its purest form. So, number one, imagination, the invisible first twist. Creativity begins long before the wheel turns. It lives in the planning stage, imagining texture, weight, color, and purpose. This conceptual spin is the first insertion of energy into the work. Like twist in fiber, imagination provides direction and coherence for everything that follows. Number two, design, translating vision into structure. Here, creativity meets craft. Choice of fiber, preparation method, twist level, and ply structure are technical decisions, but each carries aesthetic intention. A high twist worsted yarn expresses precision and clarity. A low twist woolen conveys softness and air. Technique becomes the medium of creative voice. Number three, execution, flow, and adjustment. Through spinning, creativity takes the form of responsiveness. The hands interpret the fiber's resistance, the feet maintain rhythm, and the spinner adjusts in real time. Each moment of correction, the tightening of the draft, the easing of the tension, is a creative act of micro problem solving, where technique and intuition meet. And of course, number four, reflection, seeing what emerges. Creativity continues in how we evaluate what we've made. A yarn that turns out differently than planned offers information and possibility. Reflection transforms error into learning, expanding creative range. The process closes its loop here, like applied yarn, balanced, resolved, and ready to inspire the next beginning. Number five, everyday creativity, the ongoing thread. In spinning, creativity is not reserved for masterpieces. It is present in daily practice, in the quiet choices, the small adjustments, the patience of repetition. Every spinner exercises creative reasoning every time they imagine, make, and learn from the materials in their hands. Creativity, like twist, is the energy that holds it all together, measured not in perfection, but in attention. Thank you for joining me in another vlog for Vlogmas. For more about woolen spinning in our community, please have a look in the down bar, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram as @woolenspinning, and please check out Patreon to join the community at patreon.com/woolenspinning/join. I'll see you in episode 11, From Yarn to Fabric. Until then, happy spinning. Bye for now.